is the Chillinois Podcast. I am your host, Cole Preston. I wanted to quickly let our listeners know that you can watch the video version of this podcast on your preferred platform at chillinois.net/video. That's chillinois.net/video. Our show is funded by listeners like you. You can get exclusive access to new episodes of our show and behind the scenes content by supporting us on Patreon. Just go to chillinois.net/Patreon. Your support helps us afford hosting fees to distribute our content and equipment to capture our content. If you like our show, please remember to leave a positive rating and subscribe. Just wanted to take a moment to thank you for supporting our show, and I hope that you enjoy this episode. It's going to be an awesome one. Today, I'm joined by Carly Bader from Willow Industries. This is the second time somebody from Willow Industries has joined us on the show. Carly, welcome to the Chillinois Podcast.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah, super excited to talk to you. Thank you and the team at Willow for setting aside time to speak to me. I think that the subject matter at hand is going to be very informative for our listening audience, and possibly even as new businesses start to go online in the state of Illinois. Maybe somebody like that is listening in. So I guess keep that in mind. As we go into the show, you might have consumers or possible new customers listening in. Before we get into what Willow Industries does, I wanted to talk about how you found yourself at Willow Industries, if you may.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely been a long journey. I come from kind of traditional education with a master's in infectious disease under molecular microbiology, and really have just had an amazing time with my own personal education, and took some years as well as currently am educating at a few colleges. Here today, educating consumers and, as you said, possible clients. Education is really important to me, especially when it comes to the science of cannabis. So 5 years ago, I started with a lab here in Colorado. I've since worked at 2 different labs in the state of Colorado, both in the cannabis space as well as expanding into hemp. That was really important with my move to the second lab to really be able to understand also the hemp side of things, hemp regulations, as well as hemp testing. Although it's the same plant, it's very different worlds, as you guys know. So was in the testing industry for about 5 years, and was, calling a lot of clients, letting them know that they had failed their microbial testing, whether it's total yeast and mold or aspergillus, and always felt like I was the bearer of bad news and didn't always have a solution for my clients. And after leaving the testing labs last year, got back into education and really wanted to open myself to the opportunity to help the cannabis community, help the hemp community, and found myself here at Willow, where we're doing exactly that. We really are doing the work of so many in our personalized partnerships and helping our clients understand what it is to grow clean.
Cool. And I guess let's just dive right in before, we'll back up kind of and maybe talk about what terminology is and stuff, but let's talk, what does Willow Industries do? Please expound upon that, growing clean.
Yeah. So Willow Industries uses an ozone system to kill microbials without damaging your flower. And that is something that is both important to cannabis consumers, making our products in each state safe for medical patients and recreational patients alike. Really important to be putting the safest product on the market. In a pharmaceutical setting, this is the way things would go, from point A to point Z, from what we many times call seed to sale. So really, working here at Willow, we have, as I said, both consulting tools. I have quite a toolkit of scientific techniques and resources that I've learned from my time within the industry and on the testing side of things. As I said, I've been in science for a long time, and when it comes to growing plants, what we see within this industry is an even more broad array of microbials, bacteria, fungus, yeast, mold. It's really all very present within the agricultural process. And that process does face the risk of contamination. So Willow is here both with our ozone system. The Willow 360 is our current model that is just amazing in the fact that, we're running 10 plus pounds of cannabis through the system and coming out with really amazing smelling, terp rich, no potency loss, clean product that you can put on the shelves and feel very confident in the fact that you're going to pass testing as well as pass, consumer testing, which is really what's most important.
Gotcha. I was just pulling up for folks that that are watching the video version of the podcast right now. I was gonna pull up an image of the Willow Pure 360, which I actually saw last time I was in Colorado. I don't know if Jill told you that, but she it wasn't there, but I was given a tour of your location, which was super cool. So here's kind of a peek at it. Is this correct? This is the
Yeah.
Cool.
Yep. So that's our 360, and the drum you see there, that is, circular. The 360 model turns very slowly. Definitely want to, let that be known that this turning process is more of a folding process so that the ozone is able to work on all of those plant materials, whether it's trim or larger bud size. We've tried a variety of product, even some pre-rolls as well. And it's really amazing that we're able to utilize ozone, which is, a very organic, clean product that it's used in many other agricultural processes for cannabis. Really being able to show safe, consistent, scalable, and a gentle solution for a microbial contamination that might seem overwhelming. And often people are using other methods like hydrogen peroxide, chlorine dioxide. These are all really strong chemicals, and even dips. You dipping your product in a liquid. It's not exactly something that is going to give the results on the other end that are equally as terp rich and THC rich. Whereas ozone, we're really seeing amazing results with that.
Gotcha. Yeah. So let's just back up a bit. I like that you brought up, that these techniques are employed in other areas of industrial agriculture. And so it's not like this is wizardry that we're introducing to the world. It's technology that is applied to not only agricultural products that we consume every day, but I believe even things like peanuts and meat and everything else can go through a process. So like I said, I wanted to back up because there's a distinction in what we are talking about. Two concepts, I think, that two distinct concepts we're going to be talking about today. Can you introduce those concepts for us, please?
Yeah, sure. So kind of what you were just mentioning with like a normal process is something you might know of milk. Your milk comes to you pasteurized. Every, gallon of milk is being treated through pasteurization. It would be really, terrible for someone to get a foodborne illness from that milk and then have to recall and things of that nature. And that's exactly what we see in the cannabis industry. In Colorado, we just had a 2-for-1 where 2 recalls were announced in the same day. And that's really something that is just kind of extremely costly to your business for there to be a recall. So what is mostly seen in many industries is something we call a kill step. And that is something that is standard to your process. And that's really where we see the Willow fitting in as a kill step for your process. As I said, the agricultural industry plants are exposed to climate, season, humidity changes, humans being a variable. It's very hard to produce completely sterile cannabis. So you want to have something within your process that is going to be what is called a kill step. And that's what we have here with the Willow. It's going to be introduced as part of your workflow in that seed to sale. It's going to be before sale, after trim, pre-packaging, and really help you with not only ensuring that you have safe consumer products, but also that you're not having any recalls and not getting anyone sick, which is really most important in this industry. As I said, recalls you hear every once in a while for lettuce and meat products. And, thankfully, we do have that kind of saying that cannabis hasn't killed anyone. And wouldn't it be terrible if someone ate a gummy, ingested salmonella, and did get sick? We really need to keep that clean bill of health for the cannabis community to push that forward, that this is a safe product, both recreationally and medically. So, utilizing this as a kill step is really what we try to push. As you said, there's kind of this other side of the equation. The other talked about point is remediation. And that's something that we don't want to have to do. It's not as bad as a recall, but remediation is equally as costly. For getting your product tested that first time, it might cost you a couple $100 at your lab just for your microbial testing. And if you fail that because you come in over your regulatory limit for your state of Illinois in yeast and mold, aerobic, salmonella, E. coli, any of these fields, you're going to fail testing. And that now doubles down on your cost, because now you have to go back and remediate and then move forward with possible duplicate retests. Many states include retesting in duplicate. It's kind of like if you failed once, you have to pass twice to kind of double down on that to ensure that your remediation worked. And often you have to send this to 2 different labs. And with that, you are really just increasing that testing cost and decreasing your profitability on that 10 pounds on that batch size. So remediation is definitely more of a reactive process, kind of like a recall. And Willow, we Willow really just want to be proactive, again, with both the Willow 360 model, but also with our personalized partnership, where we consult with you on how to kill at the source, whether we determine it's in your water source, your soil, whether it's coming from your air quality. We, as I said, have a really large toolkit of scientific techniques that we can employ to determine where that contamination is coming from. So moving really towards the seed end of things, instead of being reactive and finding out that your product is failed on the sale end of things and that you're just not able to sell it, or forbid you have a recall, and that's just really detrimental to your company's name as a whole.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's like costly in 2 ways. You explained all the ways it was like financially costly, but if a consumer hears about a recall, like, I don't know about you, and I don't mean to get into recalls, like, it happens, right? It happens with all of our everyday products. But I'm just saying, people start to think, especially, so anyways, you get what I'm saying. It's costly in 2 ways, not only financially, but potentially public opinion,
I mean,
that's
lawsuits even that are coming out currently.
True.
You really want to maintain your integrity from the start. And the Willow 360 kind of experience that we talk about is really doing that, guiding you through that process so that you don't have any of those negative repercussions at the end.
Very cool. So it sounds like not only is it something that is incorporated into your SOP or your standard operating procedure for people that are listening, it's also you say you offer us like a toolkit so that, because that's the thing. Yeah, I having it as part of your SOP to guarantee things, but like I liked that what you added in there. So you offer a toolkit so that maybe people can find the issues that keep popping up.
Yeah, so we have a consulting team. We have a great team of microbiologists and chemists as well that can definitely support you in your full process. You know, part of this, partnership is the path to long-term success and good manufacturing practices. So we have an amazing team member who is really, on top of GMP practices, and can help our clients with setting that up, even writing your SOPs for you, and helping integrate Willow, the 360 into your process. But yeah, we are really focused on healthy plants, which starts with that seed, and looking at your facility as a whole. So a lot of calls that I'm taking talking about, simple things such as how 70% alcohol is more effective cleaner than 90% alcohol. A lot of people think more is better. And in many cases, when it comes to chemical reactions, that's just not true. And so we understand not every facility can have a microbiologist and a chemist on staff. So we have those kind of consulting tiers and what we call a la carte options for our clients to also access our team of scientists. Everyone who leases a Willow 360 gets an initial consultation, a site visit, and an assessment. And if you'd like to move further with that, we start a partnership with our consulting team. And that's something that, even when I was at the labs, was something that is very important for them to understand. And I saw many of my clients bringing consultants in, or trying to bring in a microbiologist full time, and realizing that maybe that's not their needs, that they just need someone to come by every 1 to 3 months, give tips, give tricks. I've got 6 years of formal education within the field of molecular and microbiology, and then 5 years of cannabis experience, and that's not something that everyone has. We really have so many intricacies within the cannabis, marijuana, hemp industries that are just really particular to what's going on with these cultivations that we don't see in outdoor agriculture as much. So being really active to prevent growth within a facility is important, because these things can spread and get out of hand pretty quickly. So we really try and be proactive that when you get a lease with us, you get this team of consultants, and then can further that relationship throughout your lease.
Yeah. And one thing I wanted to mention that I think you mentioned, it seems like you have awareness of, for folks that are listening right now, if you didn't know, one of the things that Illinois, or at least people that report on cannabis, say about Illinois is that we have some of the strictest testing requirements in the nation. It sounds like you're aware of that. You mentioned. Yeah. And so for that reason, it's no surprise that you have a presence in Illinois,
Yeah.
So.
And some of these regulated standards are, it's great to have legalization. I'm, so proud of that for Illinois, for Colorado, for many of our states to get into legalization. But it's kind of that next step towards legitimization, and making sure that this product is healthy and safe for consumers. And I think that's really that next step that Illinois is moving into. With their standards and their limits. Some of these standards and limits are, 10,000 colony forming units, which allows for, some natural contamination, as we spoke of. But then we have certain things like Aspergillus, where it is a detect, non-detect test. So if you have any level, one spore of Aspergillus is going to cause your product to fail. And Aspergillus is everywhere. It's on the human body, it's in the air, it's in the soil. So again, we at Willow really try and be proactive. We're happy to come out and test your air, come out and test your soil, or even we send out conicals and you send it back to me and I can test it within the lab to determine that your inputs are clean as well. Everything you're bringing into your facility should be as clean as possible to kind of lower what we call the bio burden, the amount of biological materials that you're burdened with, so that the Willow can effectively clean and get you down to either a non-detect on those certain species that they're testing for, or to a passing range for some of the other ones that have a regulatory limit.
Yeah. I want to get back to the distinction between the two concepts really quick, but one other thing that you mentioned, I thought that before I forget, I wanted to give some airtime to, because I figured you maybe had some expertise on the matter. So from what I understand, there was like the Chicago Sun-Times, a local publication here in Illinois, did like what you might call an audit, and they bought pre-rolls from a dispensary here in Illinois, had them tested, and actually like I think 7 of the 8 pre-rolls failed testing for aspergillus. One of them was aspergillus, some were others. And I wanted to ask you, one of the things the article mentioned was that pre-rolls are actually, I don't mean to keep using the word but predisposed to those things, to those types of things happening, like it's happened in many different states. And you mentioned that the Willow machine actually can do the pre-rolls. And so I'm just curious, what is at play with why do pre-rolls, or why are they predisposed to this?
Well, again, it's that human variable. It's adding a whole nother process to your, standard operating procedure. It's not just that you had someone trimming the bud and then it went into the Willow. It is that someone is trimming the bud and then it's going to a secondary, possibly room, or even facility, and then being further processed. It's just more hands on the product. Those machines, people are putting batch after batch into those machines. You want to make sure you clean in between batches. You want to clean at the end of the day and at the beginning of every day. And those are some of those standard operating procedures that you would want to further activate and put into action when you have another process going on. So additional processes, additional cleaning. And that's not always what's going to be top priority. A lot of times it's how many pounds can we get, and not about how clean is the facility. And we want to make sure people understand that those two things really coincide with each other. The cleanliness of your facility is really going to give you the most amount of product. Clean plants or happy plants are producing plants, as well as give you the most amount of passing product on the other end. Failing product doesn't make you any money.
Thank you for breaking that down. That totally makes sense. I like how you put it pretty succinctly. More processing means more cleaning is required, and if you're skipping those steps, you could end up in a spot like that. So very cool.
Every variable is another source of contamination, and the limitation of that is what we're trying to push for.
Awesome. Well, so yeah, I wanted to back up again so kill step versus remediation. It sounds like the distinction there was, correct me if I'm wrong, I want to try to say it back to you. It's that remediation is more of a reactive process.
Oh, yeah.
And then, sorry, go ahead.
Those clients. Yeah, no problem. It's those clients that you call and say, hey, this is failing, or the client calls you at the lab when I was there and they said, oh, I've just failed like all these batches, what do I do? And now I can recommend to move towards a Willow 360. But again, you want to use that in your process as a kill step and not have to, after the fact, try and figure out what to do, because, when that happens, then your process is thrown off. Your your day-to-day move through, process. Now I have to go backwards, and now I have this failing product sitting around, and what do I do with it? And, microbes grow exponentially. So when you have 10,000 colony forming units today, you could have 20,000 colony forming units tomorrow. So it's really important to, reduce, as I said, that bioburden and really be ahead of the game instead of having to figure out what you're going to do with that product after it's failing.
And I'm sorry to put you on the spot. Is the 10,000, is that like a standard for states, or is that just Illinois? Or I'm just curious because it sounds familiar. So I'm like, what?
Yeah, so 10,000 is also Colorado standard.
Okay.
And I think, we were one of the first here in Colorado, and I think we kind of established that standard for others. There's lots of conversations on how that is relative, because that's that total yeast and mold. And that's not determining which yeast or which mold or if they're pathogenic or non-pathogenic. And truthfully, the states don't have a difference. They're just looking at that number as an indication of cleanliness, as an indication of your total yeast and mold bioburden for that product. And, when you think about it, 10,000 colony forming units in a gram, that's per gram. That's pretty significant. And so, having something like a kill step that you're not riding that number, you're really producing the cleanest possible product is really important.
Gotcha. Yeah. So thanks for breaking that down. It sounds like really the kill step is proactive, like you said, incorporated into that SOP and ensures that you're not going to fail testing. Yeah. And so really quick, just the other thing that I learned a lot about last time, and, you mentioned before we got on air that folks, I don't know if I said this very clearly or not. I know I said you're the second person from Willow, but the first person from Willow on our show was the CEO and founder, Jill Ellsworth. That was way back in the day when we first started the podcast. So if you want to hear an earlier version of what was our show, go back and check that out. One of the things I regretted not devoting more airtime to with Jill was, and this is, I prepped you on, I said, I want to talk a little bit about, the different forms of remediation. So you mentioned a few, some that I wasn't even aware of, but, you said irradiation, what was the dipping one? And then peroxide. Like I have never heard of the.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So can you go through the different types and tell us like what the methodology is and such?
Yeah. So hydrogen peroxide in the similar fashion is using like reactive oxygen, those oxygen molecules to react with the product and poke holes in the microbes and react it and essentially kill them. And again, that's similarly what we're doing here with just ozone-free electrons being able to poke holes in the microbes. But again, this is an oxygenated kind of barrel, or I should say ozonated barrel versus a hydrogen peroxide liquid. And again, when I was on the testing lab side of things, we used to see samples come in that were microwaved and just brown and dry, or, dipped in whatever they decided to dip it in. And again, these are very, very strong chemicals that, some of the dips just like never completely evaporated off of that product. Where with organic ozone, it's gone just like air, and is, never seen again. And some of these other processes, like I said, are totally legal. You're allowed to remediate however you choose to in the state of Colorado. And it's important to understand that although they are legal and may in fact kill, nobody wants product that is brown and crispy at the end of that process. So I've seen quite a few different processes, and, it's totally fine to do it as long as you're doing it to the whole batch, not just what you're sending to the lab. And, that's your choice. And, for me, I definitely choose Willow, and that's why I'm here today.
Sure, sure. Yeah. So I'm just curious, are you like, was that just conjecture? Do people really like literally microwave their weed? Because I've heard that before and I'm just curious.
Oh, I'm sure of it.
You are? Wow, that's insane. So, I wanted to make sure to say this too, to your point of those other methods being completely legal and such. They are also methods that are used in common products that we consume on a day-to-day basis, let's just say.
Yeah. Yeah. I
So
mean, and heat pasteurization for milk or, canned goods is just fine. But to heat your cannabis, well, now you're taking all my good stuff,
right,
smoking my
right.
weed for me.
Do you mind I mean I could definitely give my spin on it, but tell, just in case somebody's listening and wondering why heating up a sample of cannabis before it's been ingested might affect the end product. Can you please get into that?
Yeah. So combustion is what is turning your, THC chemicals that you have in that product into your high, into those good feelings, that CBD just the same. And this is what's done with edibles as well. They're preheated so that when you consume that, you're getting those chemicals just right off the bat. So there is decarboxylation, a chemical reaction that is required. And when you are smoking, that's what's done because of that combustion. As we decarboxylate cannabis for edibles, it's done prior to that cooking, and that's something you don't want done, before you get your product. If you're going to be smoking.
Right. If you're going to be smoking it, exactly. Yeah, because it's like, I guess if you were going to make it into edibles, well, it would be decarbed for you. But yeah, that's just a joke. So, well, cool. So yeah, I'm just curious, just because again, I know you kind of described it, but the peroxide one, do they literally dip it in and then let it evaporate off? Is that how that?
Yep.
Gotcha.
Dip it and then let it cure.
Mm-hmm. And
I'm sure most of these things are kept behind closed doors. Even when I was auditing facilities, when I was working at the lab and checking them out, even though they knew I was on their side to
sure.
determine what was going on in their facility, why they were failing testing. A lot of things are not to be shared, and if you're dipping it in hydrogen peroxide, which most certainly would work, people aren't going to put that on their label, and that's something different than what we're trying to do with Willow. We really are trying to become the clean, kind of safe, consistent, scalable, gentle solution that is known as we said, kill step, that by being Willow Pure, the client is able to tell their consumers that this is at the lowest end of, total yeast and mold counts. This is non-detect for aspergillus. This is the cleanest cannabis you're going to get, because it wasn't something that was sent for testing and came in at 9,000 CFUs, right?
Yeah.
It's something that you didn't ride that safety line. It's something that came in clean. So Willow Pure, establishing your cannabis as Willow Pure is establishing that you have the best methods, the best processes, the best, good manufacturing practices in place to grow the cleanest cannabis for consumers.
Yeah. And since you mentioned labeling, like what are your thoughts, if I could ask, on labeling? Like, I mean, my perspective would be that, knowing now what you've said, if I saw a product labeled Willow, I would know that, like you say, not only it went through the Pure 360, but then they would also be taking advantage of your consulting services. So that would be a lot to tell me to say that this is probably a quality product. What are your thoughts on labeling either product that has gone through kill step or even remediation?
Yeah, as someone who used to work on the testing side of things, and someone that also consumes cannabis on a regular basis, I think it's really important to know what's going in your body, and how that has been treated. And so I think labeling and transparency is very important. There are some states that are pushing towards that, and we at Willow think that's a great thing. We would love for more clear, concise labeling on the package. Just a nice little Willow Pure Blue something or other. We're very open and like to be transparent about our use. I know some others are not as happy with that and don't want labeling on their product, and maybe that's an indication of consumer education, which is why we're here today. Trying to educate consumers on what is their safest option. And really, I think, as I said, someone who worked in the testing lab, I have friends all the time who are like, I want to give my dog these CBD treats. And I'll say, ask for their certificate of analysis. I want to see that what I'm giving even my animal is free of contaminants. Because even on the hemp side of things, there's much less regulation there. And not everyone even tests on the hemp side of thing. I would want my product to not only be tested, but to be transparent. And, if I could have a QR code on the side of that product that I could see the certificate of analysis. I know some companies that do this. I've actually pulled up certificate analysis with my signature on it, showing that I was the one that tested that product at that level. And that gives me such amazing confidence when I see transparency like that. So we really think that Willow is able to be a transparent process and something that you can be proud of for your product and for your consumers.
Thanks for bringing up COAs, because those are definitely important. Just because it sounds like you're knowledgeable on hemp, I'm just curious because it's something that I've been unsure of, and I'm sure that maybe I could learn this from a Google. So forgive me if this is some like basic information, but like you just said, with hemp testing, like I feel like you were alluding to it, but I wanted to ask you this question, like straight up, are they only required to, per the Farm Bill, are they only like required to test for that 0.03 and nothing else? Is that true?
Correct.
Cool. Yeah. So that's why it's important, folks, to look for your COA. Thank you for bringing up that product or concept, because if you look at that COA, actually a lot of these, or at least I want to say the companies that you should trust are the ones that put that information on their COA and actually go through those tests.
Yeah, again, it's costly. If they don't have to, why spend another $1,000 on testing? But again, if you are confident in your product, that shouldn't be much of an ask for you to do some additional testing so that you make sure it's safe for those consumers. Again,
right.
A recall would be terrible.
Yeah. And for folks that are wondering like what could really happen, we had the cannabis division manager from the Illinois Department of Agriculture on our show, and he was talking about some of the great things about hemp, and that is that it can actually suck heavy metals out of the soil. But on the same hand, you have to be careful because, that product itself, obviously, if it was sucking heavy metals out of the soil, should not be consumed. And so, folks, that is why it is important, because as the Farm Bill has come and more people have been able to just grow cannabis, you want to make sure that the grounds in which it was grown on and the conditions in which it was grown in pass QA testing, right?
Yeah.
Quality analysis, is that right? QA?
Yeah. So quality assurance.
Quality assurance. Thank you.
Quality. Yeah. And then QC is quality control. So there's levels of both for sure. Yeah. Cannabis, hemp, marijuana, whatever we want to call it today, is an amazing bioaccumulator. We saw tons of extra, additional failing products during the fires in California. It was quite an interesting thing to see that all these labs came together and were like, yeah, everyone is seeing higher heavy metals failures. And we definitely attributed it to the California wildfires, bringing lots of that over both in California and in Colorado.
Wow. I wouldn't have even known that was a thing.
Yeah. And this is, like I said, cannabis, hemp being so new as an industry, as an agricultural product. These are all things that we've kind of gone on fact-finding missions. When I was hired here, I even mentioned that I'm quite the investigator. And, can take in all these facts and really be able to put them together into, with all my resources that I have through friends I've worked with and this community is in some ways very secretive. But us as scientists, it's really in our nature to share information, and that's how we kind of came across this idea that it was definitely a spike post processes for after the fires.
Yeah. So that's, like I say, that's crazy. Didn't expect to learn that today. I've already learned a lot, but I didn't expect to learn that one. So that was super cool. And you got to wonder, like you say, different things like that happen all over the country. And like I was saying earlier, since the Farm Bill effectively legalized hemp and it is being grown all across the country, this really drives home the importance of getting these reports, people. So be safe out there. Ask for a COA.
Yeah.
I'm glad we brought that topic up.
So. Yeah, the way we consult and help our clients in Florida, where it's very humid, is going to be very different than the way we support our clients in Colorado, where it's very dry. As I said, it's a very niche industry, and we try to personalize it.
What's it? I'm just curious. Do you know? Have you heard or is there anything unique about things your clients face in Illinois? I guess is humidity an issue in Illinois or?
I haven't heard much back. You guys are really just off to the races at this point. I'm sure as we see more production moving through, we'll start to see and be able to kind of culminate this data, put some of these ideas together, bring people from Illinois together. Hopefully, as I said, we really need a community of people in Illinois to work together for the betterment of these consumers and for the producers as well. We want to really get the most tax dollars out of this and put the most amount of money in everyone's pockets while keeping everyone safe.
Sure. And, you mentioned earlier that, not everybody necessarily likes to talk about this, but I'm just curious, do you have a large presence in Illinois? What's your presence even like in Illinois?
I'm not super sure. I haven't been out there personally. I don't often visit sites personally unless we have kind of this deeper partnership. But I'm unsure of that at this point. We would definitely be interested in everyone out there. Again, being able to bring everyone together under the Willow Pure kind of umbrella would be amazing to be able to, have Illinois be confident in their cannabis consumption.
Sure. Yeah. And is like I mentioned earlier, because we just did legalize, so more businesses will become, will be opening. So maybe you'll have more. But yeah, I know. Last time I spoke with them, it sounded like most operators, use them. And so I was just curious, what your presence looked like in the state. So.
Yeah, I've been with Willow for about 4 months now. So I've been on some of the newer clients, and those might have been some clients that already have one and have a 3-year lease and are happy with it, and are just kind of moving through their standard operating procedure with the Willow integrated.
Yeah. Well, cool. What was the yes. So you mentioned, I really like, and we'll start to close the show here soon, Carly. I just want to thank you again for your time today. It's like I said, I've learned a lot more than I expected to in some regards. So thank you. I wanted to ask, is part of the goal, since you mentioned not only it's proactive, right? So is the goal, I'm curious, to not have to use the barrel at the end, or is that a lockstep in the SOP? Because you mentioned the consulting team and trying to narrow down what are the issues what are the issues that are happening so we can nip them in the bud, pun intended.
Yeah. So there's definitely, as I said, those major situations, right? You might have a batch of soil that you didn't know it, but when it was on shipment to you, got rained on, got wet, and that was your source of contamination. Why you have 100,000 CFUs, why you have 1 million CFUs, and we're able to help there. But again, as I said, all agricultural processes in this production faces the risk of contamination. So having the Willow as a kill step within that process, and being able to get your counts down to zero, down to as low as possible, for the health of the consumer is kind of where we fit in for your day-to-day production, for sure. Now, when it comes to that consulting, that's every 1 month, 3 months kind of a thing, where we can come in, or you send us samples and we can address your issues. But, again, seasonal changes, that's always going to be something that could cause an increase with that humidity. And then that human variable is going to be something that you're going to see Aspergillus, present in your facility. And we need to make sure that it's not on that product.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I just want to thank you again. I guess before we close, I wanted to take like 5 steps back and say, like, again, thank you. Because I don't know that most consumers let's even back away from weed. Like, I don't even know if maybe that's something people learn today, that like, I think people know that milk is pasteurized and have like, they see it on the label, but maybe they don't have a concept of like what that means. And the fact that, different foods go through these processes. So I think like that was my goal today, to learn more about that. And I hope that my audience, I am pretty confident that my audience learned a lot today too. So yeah, just wanted to say thanks.
For sure. I mean, honestly, thank you guys so much. I mentioned that I came from kind of research, and I worked at Anschutz Medical doing research there before getting into the cannabis industry. And I really just saw a hole within this industry, and fit into testing, and then saw a secondary hole where it's like, okay, well, we're testing for these things, but we need a solution. So it really, even as a consumer, I didn't know it existed. I knew, and even to this day, tell my friends, and when I explain what I do to individuals, it's like, oh, just how you test your dairy and your meat products, and all your, food goes through testing before it shows up on the shelf. That's the same thing that's done with cannabis and hemp. And, it's really important to do so, to make sure that we have, the safest product, and keep that clean name for cannabis.
Hell yeah. Well, rock on. You said you're 4 months in. Am I your first media appearance for Willow?
You are, yeah. So as you mentioned, Jill, the CEO, had been on before, and when you guys, reached out to us, she's like, "Oh, we got to get Carly on." And I've spoken representing different companies, the testing labs as well. So as an educator teaching in colleges, this is totally my energy. I love to talk and educate people on what cannabis can be. Try to reduce the stigma. I'm a high level scientist, you could say, but I'm also getting high every once in a while. So, definitely reducing the stigma.
I love it. Well, you keep doing that, my friend. We need more people like you in the world. Thank you again for your time today. And I guess before we go, any last words? You want to plug the website, anything like that?
Honestly, not too much. Just really, want our consumers and possible, prospective clients to know that Willow is here for you, both to introduce a clean kill step, as well as to educate you and really help you guys with that personalized partnerships.
Yeah. So it looks like the website's willowindustries.com for folks that want to learn more. We'll put that in the podcast description. And I guess I always like to try to put it in a bottle at the end of the episode. So I'm going to try to put it in a bottle, and you correct me if I'm wrong. There's a distinction here that we've got 2 concepts: kill step and remediation. Remediation is very much a reactive process, and it can be costly, not only because you're literally having to remediate something, you're reacting to an issue that has been brought to your attention, and then you have to send it for more testing. Versus the proactive process of doing the Willow 360, employing the Willow 360 technology before you send it to testing, thus guaranteeing you will pass your QA is it the QA or QC test? Sorry.
Either or, both. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, both.
A clean bill of certificate of analysis. Yeah.
Cool. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't fudging anything. Thus guaranteeing you either that, plus if you are contracting or leasing or whatever the term is with Willow, you get those consulting services so that you can try to nip those problems in the bud, like I said.
Yep, exactly.
Nice. We put it in a bottle. Cool. All right. Or maybe we should start saying we put it in a, what was that?
So we rolled it into a joint.
There you go. I was about to say we put it in a bong.
Put it in a bong. I love it. We rolled it.
Cool. All right. Well, folks, we hope you found this episode as informative as I did. And we'll see you in the next episode of the Chillinois podcast. See ya, Carly.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.